Hey there, and welcome to the Divorce Planner Podcast. I'm divorce prep coach Alex Beatty. One of the biggest questions I get from clients is, how much is my divorce going to cost? And with the average cost of a problem-free divorce hitting $20,000, knowing what to budget can feel like an impossible question to answer. That's why I sat down with family law attorney Dennis Vetrano Jr. to get real answers about divorce expenses, hidden fees, and how to keep costs under control. We cover everything from hourly rates versus flat fees, when you actually need expensive experts, the biggest money mistakes people make during divorce, and how being organized can literally save you thousands of dollars in legal fees. Whether you're considering divorce or already in the process, this conversation will give you the financial clarity you need to make informed decisions and protect your wallet. Let's dive in. My guest today is one of the people that you need to know about to go to as a resource because family law attorney Dennis Vetrano Jr. is a one-stop shop. I love his social media account. I love his podcast. Basically, there's no wrong this man can do in my eyes.
Wow, with that lead in, what do I do with that? My God. Thank you, though. Thank you. Well, obviously, I'm doing at least something right?
You definitely are. And I love your no-nonsense approach. And it kind of like runs the gamut. It's a very straightforward kind of giving advice. But you come to this work from a really human place, which I appreciate because this is a really emotional process for a lot of people to go through, right? The basis of my coaching foundation is there's an emotional side to divorce and there's a business side. And you need to separate the two and address them both. And on the business side, we're going to talk about the price of divorce. So I'm just going to jump in. I have about 6 or 7 questions. The first one, I know this is the $1 million question, and this is like the hardest one to answer, but let's start with the number everyone wants to know. What does divorce actually cost? Now, there are many different processes, but if you could give us a ballpark idea, jump in.
$20,000.
Amazing. End of conversation.
And let me tell you what's behind that. A lot of people don't realize, and most good divorce lawyers, I shouldn't say good, most divorce lawyers will not tell you. They'll give you an initial retainer, which we do, of course, maybe $5,000, $7,000, whatever it is. But the national average, last time I checked, for a contested divorce lawyer, start to finish, not initial retainer, on average is about $16,800, $17,000 national average. Might, New York or California be somewhat more expensive? Yes. Might it vary based on your circumstances? Yes. But that's average contested divorce lawyer cost per side. So now if you add some appraisal values and you add some filing fees and you add some copying fees or process services, those other things, you're roughly talking on average case contested divorce, which means you're not agreed on everything. Doesn't mean you're going to fight over everything. It just means you're not agreed on all the issues involved in your divorce case, which is child support, spousal support, attorney's fees, equitable distribution, custody and visitation, and grounds. Those are all the issues involved in your divorce case. If you're not agreed upon all of those things, then necessarily your case at that point is considered contested. Average divorce lawyer contested case, about $17,000.
Yeah, I mean, shocking, right? Like it makes sense because every email, every call, every point needs to go back and forth. You can present an offer and you're going to get a counter and then you have to go through everything. And so understanding that, look, the whole goal is for people not to go through that, right? It's to save as much money as possible so you have money after.
And I don't want you, and listen, let me interject. I don't want you to look at that number and think, oh, that's what the most expensive divorce costs. No, that's average. If your case pens, which a lot of them do, a year and a half, it's back and forth. You can't get discovery. They won't give you information about their 401k. They don't want to talk about what their real income is. There's a lot of cash income. Then that number's going up. So you got to look at that and I think that's part of the reason why what you're talking about here is so valuable. Understand, think of that number in your head like that's a basic contested divorce.
Yeah, and shocking but true. And part of that, is what you talked about. We have to break down in maybe a spouse has a business and you need a business valuation. You have retirement accounts. You're going to need to deal with like having them assessed and an expert coming in. So besides obvious attorney fees, what are some other hidden costs that tend to blindside people going through the process?
Well, I think you talked about them a little bit. I think if there's a business involved, if it's a valuable business, and look, it's not easy to determine whether or not it's a valuable business if you were not the one managing that business throughout the marriage, right? A lot of times people don't have any idea how much money's coming through the door there or how much going out for that matter, or really where any of the finances are coming or going from, right? So business evaluation is one of those things. Blue book values, valuations on equipment, on cars, appraisals on any real estate. And those appraisals can become more complex if they're an income producing piece of real estate because they're almost quasi like a business and a piece of real estate.
Yeah.
Because they generate income and there's money in and out, and there may be tax returns pertaining to it or intricacies there. But then in addition, just the base value of what the real estate is worth. And again, even if you're talking about custody and visitation, you can talk about forensic evaluation there, right? Because I find that what becomes most contentious in these cases is custody and visitation.
Yeah.
And a lot of times finances follow from that. So, who ends up with, most time, largest portion of the time with the kids? That's going to make a difference as to, who's paying child support, who's paying spousal support, what the numbers are, what assets you walk from the divorce with. So, and keep in mind, something like a forensic can cost you $25,000. And that's not, we had one just the other day. $25,000, $30,000 for a forensic. And that's just one piece, right? Then appraisals for businesses, appraisal for equipment, those sorts of things.
Thank you so much for that deep dive into everything. And I really want to kind of hammer home that the more prepared you are, I mean, I know this is my soapbox, right? Like this is like the sword I fall on every time. The more prepared you are financially, emotionally, administratively for this process before you get the ball rolling, the more you're in the best position to be your own best advocate, but also that you'll be in charge of these costs a little bit more, that you'll be able to be prepared for them and hopefully cut down on a couple. We'll be back after a quick break. Feeling overwhelmed about the possibility of a divorce and not sure where to start? Book a free 15-minute strategy call with me. During our time, we'll talk about where you are in the process and what next steps could be. To schedule your call and learn more about my coaching program, head over to www.thedivorceplanner.net/coaching. Let's get back to today's episode. Let's just switch back to working with your attorney. How can people avoid really getting charged for every single email and phone call? Like, how can they be really smart about using your time wisely so that they're not constantly running up the cash register?
I think you have to make sure you're with the right lawyer to begin with. I do think that makes a difference. I mean, quite frankly, I don't want to do the admin work. I don't want to do the non-legal work. And in large part because, number one, I want to try to be efficient with you, right? And I know how expensive we are. Any good divorce lawyer is going to be expensive. That's what they're going to be. But, also to a large degree, that's what you hire us for. We want to do legal work. We don't want to try to hold your hand through the net worth statement process. So, and I think, again, that's one of the things that even today, I've been doing this 25 years, and even as much as we tell clients, that's one of the biggest struggles we have. And that's what causes your case to become contentious, time-consuming, and expensive, is when it's like pulling teeth to get information. Well, why do they need this? Why do they need this document? Why? Be prepared. Whatever your lawyer asks for, they need it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be asking you for it. So, and if you're proactive, you can have things in advance, pre-printed, like, any QuickBooks, books and records for any of the corporations. You can have your pre-printed bank account statements. You can have credit card statements. And I suggest this for people in healthy marriages who are trying to build wealth. Fill out a net worth statement at any given time. Even if you're like, hey, I just got divorced, like I'm in a new relationship, or even I'm single and I want to build wealth. Where's the starting point? The starting point is the net worth statement. Know how much you make at the end of the day and how much goes out the door, what your assets are and what your liabilities are. And I will prepare you in advance. Sometimes you're going to look at it and you're going to say, I've got a negative net worth. And it's a really humbling process, but it's also an enlightening process, and it gets you a starting point.
100%. And you're hitting on something that I work with clients on all the time, right? People who are just considering divorce, maybe their spouse just brought the idea up to them. There are one or two areas that are really triggering in this process. And one is the changing dynamic with your kids. And the second is money, right? And so
that anxiety that it brings up, whether you're going from a 2 income household to one, or if you're going from one and somebody has to get a job, whatever it is, the fear that it brings up can be tamed in only one way. And that way is financial planning. And it's better to crunch the numbers of your life, especially before you're sitting down with your family law attorney. If you are not the person in charge of your finances, that's okay. There's still ways for you to get access to information. Dennis just listed out like a bunch of areas where you need to get your hands on things. Also, your tax returns. If you've been in a long-term marriage, I always advise getting the past 5 years. I do that because I like people to see what the marital standard of living has been. But also, it's your treasure map for all those different accounts. I mean, even if you don't have all the information, you've got the clues as to where they are, how they were dealt with, which is your most important first key piece of information for you to gather. But by doing this work, and I agree with you because I have a lot of clients who come to me and they're not sure whether or not they're going to divorce. And I always tell them, like, if you reconcile, this work benefits you. If you move forward with divorce, this benefits you. It's never a bad thing to look under the hood and have a reality check, because that's when you get to make a plan. And that's when you're taking control of those fears.
And listen, keep in mind, use the word anxiety. You know, why do we have anxiety in the divorce process? We have anxiety in large part, in my mind, because of the unknowns.
Yeah.
We don't know where the assets are. We don't know how much money we're making. We don't know what we can expect for spousal support or child support, whether you're the payee or the payor. We don't know what the schedule is going to be with our kids. We don't know how we're going to live post-divorce. But how do you how do you address the anxiety? How do you calm those emotions? By knowledge and information and expertise. As many times as you can check off a box where something goes from an unknown, even if it's not too unknown, it goes to something you have some idea about, and information helps you do that. So if you want to bring your anxiety down, go to work, get your information, then you're going to start one by one making those unknowns, even not necessarily knowns, but things you're going to have an idea about, right? And that's how you bring your anxiety down.
100%. Completely agree with you. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I know you're the attorney, but I kind of want to jump in on this one. To me, based on my personal experience, based on working with clients throughout the United States, because you have to remember, divorce laws vary state by state. And if you don't have a prenup, then the laws in your state are your prenup. I think people have this idea that, oh, no, we don't have an agreement. You do, right? We all tend to sign this $110 marriage certificate, a contract, a legally binding contract. So I would say, absolutely, a prenup is probably the most loving thing you can do. It's uncomfortable, it's awkward, and it protects you. And if you can't have hard conversations, especially about money, about who's going to do what the expectations are in your marriage before moving forward, that's not a good sign of a relationship, because you're going to be coming to heads on lots of different things. And you want to know that you work well together. And this is a really important piece of information that you'll be getting, and protection for both of you.
The most important thing you can have in a relationship, especially from day one, is transparency, confidence, trust, love. A lot of those things draw from that transparency. When we have somebody come into our office to do a prenup, the first thing we ask for them is to gather individually and collectively all of their financial information and exchange it so everybody knows. The prenup will also lay out what you can expect from each other if the worst happens, right? So in my mind, that is the pinnacle of transparency. If that isn't or can't be the best starting point for a long-lasting relationship, I don't know what is. And if you can't have those difficult conversations, like you said, about what's your credit card debt, what's your credits for, like what assets do you have, what debts do you have, how much do you owe, how much do you make? If you don't know all those things and you can't have those tough conversations early on, how are you going to weather the storm when it's kids and it's mortgages and it's working overtime and it's vacations and it's all of these things that may come up? Worse yet, God forbid, health concerns. Like, you're going to have big problems once you get married. And again, it's nothing you can't deal with together. If you start from a point of understanding, you will have those difficult times. You will need transparency. You will need trust. And you have to be capable of having those difficult conversations throughout your marriage. If you can't start off with that, how are you going to do that 10 years down the road?
100%, 100%, 100%. And let's just call it what it is. Money equals feelings, right? And especially for all of my stay at home parents, specifically my stay at home moms, adding into a prenup or a postnup points about, as I mentioned, roles and expectations is important because if one person is going to step back from a career and they're making sacrifices of earnings, they're making sacrifices of retirement savings, that all needs to be addressed. God forbid, you guys, look, some for a reason, some for a season. Here's what I can tell you 100% in life. People are going to lose jobs and sometimes relationships are going to end. So by being as prepared as possible, but again, that means you have to have difficult conversations, but that should be the cornerstone of whatever relationship you have to be able to navigate those and to be vulnerable and to say, I'm feeling scared about this, but I want to get through it. But also, money is one of the biggest contentious points. So understanding where each of you are and how you spend money and what you see is just going to be really eye opening. So don't shy away from digging into that before you even get married, because it's really going to give you the best foundation.
If you're in that stay-at-home parent sort of situation, what better way to find out whether or not that prospective spouse will see their income as an ours, not a theirs? Because if you're a stay-at-home parent and you're sacrificing your career, your financial future, your ability to climb the corporate ladder, your ability to be self-supporting financially, if you're sacrificing those things, you need to know that the income, their income, as they see it, when they have that ability to chase their corporate dreams or what have you, is seen as an ours and not a theirs. No better way to do that than through the prenup process.
100%. And also, look, I have a lot of clients who have been stay-at-home moms, right? Laws vary state by state. And there are a lot of states. I have a lot of clients who are from Texas. I have a lot of clients who are from Missouri. I have a lot of clients who are from Florida. These are states that are notoriously really tough on divorcing moms who have been stay-at-home, right? You would think it's the opposite. So preparing in advance of that is so important.
We'll be right back after a quick break. Subscribe to the Divorce Planner's weekly newsletter and get divorce prep tips, financial planning tools, and expert insights delivered discreetly to your inbox. Sign up at www.thedivorceplanner.net. Let's get back to today's episode.
What are the biggest money mistakes that you see people making going through a divorce? I'm asking because I'm guessing there are some things that might seem smart in the moment, but in the long run bite you in the butt. If you could just lay a couple of out, that would be amazing.
I'm going to lay out probably the biggest and maybe, and again, look, it's broad brush. It's forest, not trees for me in a lot of ways, is not getting a handle on the emotions before you step into the legal to the financial. I think we overlook the emotions involved in divorce so quickly and so easily that we're like, because again, we do 60 to 100 consults a month, if you can believe it, for divorce cases. And I was overhearing just the other day. Client comes in and says, hey, I really want to stick it to the other side. Now, of course, we politely have to say at that point, that is not us. That's not what we do. If that's what you want to do, maybe it's better off. You're a better fit with another law firm, because what we're seeking to accomplish for you is a fair, efficient, effective result, not trying to, gouge a pound of flesh out of the other side. Because when you go into a divorce in that way, clearly you don't have your arms around your own emotions, right? Or any of the baggage left over, remnants of the broken relationship that haven't been addressed internally. And therefore, you're going to use that through the litigation process to make decisions. Your view is going to be so clouded that you're just not going to be able to really make meaningful decisions in a good way for your case. And then that's when cases get really expensive. You're not negotiating in good faith. You're really looking, because you're in that process now to get your pound of flesh. You're in that process to get your revenge. You're in that process to say, all those years I wasted on you my whole life, and now I'm getting divorced, and you had an affair with that floozy or whomever else. Okay. I hate that for you. I feel really badly that happened, and that's where you are as your prospective divorce lawyer. But I had to tell you, you got to find a way to set that aside and address that separately, because that can be the least cost-effective way to address your divorce.
Yeah, such a great answer, which goes back to there's an emotional side to this process and there's a business side. And I will tell you, when you are in that state where you're really still looking to stick it to the other side, or you feel wronged or whatever, you're not in reality. The reality is you're going through basically, I always say this to clients, you are walking through, yes, a huge life change, right? This is changing your future on one hand. And on the other hand, you have to do a dissolution of a partnership agreement. Those two things don't go very well together. And when people come to me and they're in that state where they think they've been wronged, they're sticking their head in the sand. They're not really accepting what's happening to them and taking care of themselves, right? I want to blame, I want to push everything out. But the sooner you accept what is happening and you put that energy into yourself, into supporting yourself as best as possible on the emotional side, whether it is with therapy, with coaching, with journaling, getting out into nature, exercising, making sure you're not trying to bury everything in too much booze, online shopping, eating, whatever it is. You have to take care of yourself through this process so you're the best version, because you have to make really important decisions that affect your short term and long term.
Self-care is the most important aspect of this. And I put that all under that umbrella of self-care, right? And it's funny because I did a list of these things years ago about how to kind of like care for yourself in the divorce process. And I think people overlook, I don't need a friend to talk to. I don't need a counselor. And especially, honestly, I think the women that I represent are much more introspective on average than the men are. The men, I don't need anything. I'm tough. I'm rough. And I don't need friends. I don't. Okay, but then you're going to walk into these situations pissed off, and then you're going to shoot yourself in the foot because of it. So you got to don't overlook that. Self-care is super important, and it all comes under that umbrella. Read a book, get into, because a lot of times we lose who we are throughout the marriage process. You're 30 years into the marriage. You don't even remember who the hell you are anymore because you're just so-and-so's wife.
Yeah.
Or you're so-and-so's husband. You forget about your own individual self. What do you love to do? What do you do for fun? And maybe it's kind of getting back in tune with those things, and having somebody to talk to, having a support system, having a coach, all these things are important. I think in the divorce process, it's notorious for files on a conveyor belt, lawyer represents you, you go before the judge is overwhelmed, just want your case to get out the door and get it over and done with, and you're spending a ton of money on things where at the end of the day, you didn't end up with the best possible result. You're in an emotional shambles because you didn't address everything like you should have. And, kids kind of the same. So now we have a multifaceted approach that really don't overlook that. Take advantage of that. There's a lot of tools out there. Use them.
Oh, I love your answer. And it kind of answered the last question I was going to ask you, which was all about what's your best advice for keeping divorce costs under control without compromising the outcome. And what you said is exactly it. You have to be taking care of all sides of yourself. You have to remember also that, as you said, when you take care of yourself, especially if you have kids, you put yourself in the best position to navigate the business side of this process by educating yourself, right? But then balancing it with the self-care aspect, because you need to build strength and resilience. And you nailed something that is the cornerstone on the emotional side that I work with people on, which is divorce is an opportunity for some deep introspection to figure out who you are now, what you want your life to look like. Because the whole point of divorce is this chapter of your life is closing, whether it is your choice. Maybe it's not your choice, but it is what it is. And this is your opportunity now to write the next chapter. And when we're coming out of more often than not, even in the most amicable of situations, when you're getting to the point of divorce, there has been a long period of disconnect, not just with yourself, with another person, maybe getting trapped in a really toxic communication pattern, not feeling heard, not feeling seen. This is your time to do that for yourself. And that puts you in lockstep with this actual expensive process that will also bring down the cost, but also put you in the best position to become your own best advocate. And I want to wrap up with one thing. Your divorce attorney is the biggest investment you're going to make when it comes to how much your divorce is going to cost. Make the right decision. When you're in a meeting with Dennis, you are sussing him out as much as he is sussing you out. And what he was saying earlier, if you hear somebody who's like, we're going to make them pay, we're going to get them, you're going to see, if they're telling you everything you want to hear, it's probably not the right person for you. You need to go in with somebody and also realize that person is an extension of the tone you're setting. And whatever tone you set is the cash register as well. Dennis, thank you so much.
Anytime. Good to see you as always.
That's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you found it helpful. For more free resources, check out my blog at www.thedivorceplanner.net/blog. You'll find articles on how to emotionally and financially prepare for divorce, gain insights into the process from divorce experts, and empower yourself with tips and tools that make your divorce journey easier. And you can follow me on Instagram at the.divorce.planner, on Facebook at Divorce Prep, and on YouTube at The Divorce Planner for daily divorce prep tips and support. I've helped hundreds of clients and thousands more with my digital divorce prep tools prepare for divorce, and I'd be honored to support you too. I'm Alex Beatty, and this has been the Divorce Planner Podcast. Until next time, remember, divorce is hard. Preparing for one doesn't have to be.